Hey, everybody. My name is Alicia Katz-Pollock, and welcome to Bookkeeping Tricky Situations. So whenever you make a loan payment, you have to split the loan into principal and interest. And you may even have some other things, like if you have a debt protection plan in case you lose your job, then it covers the cost of your vehicle. Or maybe it's not a car loan, maybe it's a mortgage, maybe you have escrow. Those just happen as additional lines on the payment. So the trick is that your total payment is going to be the same every single month, but the proportion that gets split between your principal and your interest is going to vary. And the bad news is that there is no loan manager inside QBO. And there was one in desktop, but they actually just deprecated it. They just took it out. So there is, as of now, no actual way of manipulating these payments other than having to do it manually. If there's a third-party app out there that does that, let me know. I think NetTracker might handle loan payments, but I didn't look it up to confirm before I started today, so you can take a look for that. A couple different strategies for making that payment. Sometimes when the car payment comes in, you can just say, okay, this is a loan payment. And I have seen some people just put the full amount against the loan payment and then at the end of the year make an adjusting entry to back the interest out. I don't like that myself because I actually want to know what my balance is at all times. So when you get the statement from your loan company, it will have that breakdown on it. Although loan statements are always really tricky because they'll have like the past payment and the future payment. And they make the future payment all really big, and then the past payment is this little fine print on the second page. So you have to make sure that you're using the right page to find out what your splits are for your interest. What I'll do is go ahead and make the payment the first time and then put my splits in, and then I'll save it as a recurring transaction. So let's actually go ahead and do that. So I am going to make a payment to Ford for my loan. So I'll put in my payee for Ford Motor Company, and I'm paying from my checking account. Okay, let's say this is a month from now. So I'll move this to next month. And the category is going to be both the loan itself, and this is going to be my principal. And let's say it's a $500 payment. And then the second line is the interest. And so this one doesn't have interest paid in here. So I'm going to add a new expense account for my interest, expenses, interest paid. So I'll save that on the fly. So if my car payment's $500, let's say it's the first month, my interest payment is a whopping $150. And then I'll subtract that $150 from the $500 to give me $350. So my $500 loan payment is being split between principal and interest. And then again, if you had any other debt protection plans or escrow, you could add that on the third line. If you are making extra principal payments, I do not bundle it up here. I actually make another line down here with the extra and say extra payment to principal or something like that. Because some people will try and pay the loan down faster and make extra money doing it that way. And so let's say I'm putting in an extra $25 to principal. So in this case, I would be paying $525. So this is what the expense looks like when you're splitting it every month for your payments. And I'll save that. Now, here's one of my hoot tips is to make this recurring. Instead of making it scheduled, I would make it as a reminder because you don't want it to put in those values because it's going to change every single month. And that's happening on the 13th of every sinhave month. And what I will tend to do here, because I don't want to put in bad numbers that are wrong every single time. So I actually have this little thing that I do in my mind, works for me, it may not work for you, but I'll say to myself, okay, my interest payment, my loan was at 3.9% interest. So I'll put 3.9 here. And then 100 minus 3.9 is 96% will go to here. And then I'm adding on an extra payment to principal. And so I will frequently make it look like this as a placeholder to remind myself what my percentages are. Or maybe those numbers are going to confuse you. Then you could instead just simply say, okay, my interest is 3.9%. Whatever is going to jog your memory for what it needs to be is okay to do. You just have to remember that the total on the expense is never going to exactly match if you take this approach. So do what's right for you. That's just a couple quick strategies that you can use to help know what to do on your splits. Now, on the payment that I made, I just actually made that recurring payment, but forgot to put the ending on it. So let's go back into my recurring transactions and let's go edit this again. When you set this up, one of the things that's nice to do is say, okay, I want it to work on the 13th of every month, and maybe it's a 5-year loan. So I can go ahead and say 5 times 12 is 60, but we made one payment already. So I want this to continue for 59 occurrences. And then it will just go ahead and roll for the 5 years. And then when it's done, it will just stop. So that's a nice approach to take too. So here's a slide reminding you about that interest. So it's just one strategy for helping you remind. Okay, this is a great place to stop for questions. So let's see. JJ asks, is it okay to post interest paid in the loan account and then transfer money from checking to the loan as opposed to splitting the transaction? Well, my question is, if you take that approach, where would you get the interest number from, especially if it's over time? What I see more commonly is people put the whole principal there and then do one lump sum interest split. If I would do it the other way, JJ. So they're also saying, okay, can you just transfer money from the checking to the loan? This is one of those cases where I prefer the expense because you may need additional information, like you might need classes on it, and classes are not available on the transaction type. So my recommendation is expense. But yeah, if you just want to like take the principal over, the full payment over, and then do interest adjusting entries or edit it later on, both of those two strategies are okay. It's possible I'm not understanding your question since you're asking to post the interest. One thing I do actually want to add to that, though, is a lot of fintech companies are getting around the bank regulations on interest by not charging you interest. They charge you a finance charge instead. And sometimes they charge that upfront at the time that you initiate the loan. And then there's no interest through the rest of the year. And so that could be nice because then you just put in those initial extra finance payments in the beginning, and then you don't have to do any of this split along the way. So there's a kind of a trade-off to the benefit of that. Okay. And Christina is asking, is there a benefit to subbing the asset? Is it to itemize them on the balance sheet or just leave them under the asset register? So I like doing it as mostly it's just organization. I don't think there's not a right or wrong answer on that. I do, like I said, like to see the original cost versus the depreciation and then watch this accumulate and zero out over time. But in this demo, I didn't even work that hard. This fixed asset is just always going to stay $2,500. And then I would have a different accumulated depreciation account for all of my assets. And I know that's the way people have done it for years, but for me, seeing a list of assets and seeing this big accumulated depreciation and having no idea what goes with what doesn't suit my brain. So that's why I'm a fan of this. And I'm actually putting in feedback so that it had this checkbox where you could say, please split this into depreciation and original cost. And that's gone now. But put in feedback and say, I want this back. That would be great.